There's a reason that Donald Trump was worried about the deposition of former President Bill Clinton. There's a reason why Donald Trump was saying, "Oh, I feel bad that former President Clinton has to be deposed. He's a good guy." Because Donald Trump remembers the things that he would tell former President Bill Clinton about Jeffrey Epstein, and specifically Bill Clinton spilled the beans about it during his deposition. And it reveals something about Donald Trump's very dark past that we've been talking about here on the MeidasTouch network. And it involves a real estate transaction that Trump was involved in with a Russian oligarch in approximately 2008 on a property that was first introduced to Donald Trump by Jeffrey Epstein, and that Trump's fallout with Epstein involved this real estate transaction, this real estate deal that Epstein accused Trump of screwing him over on, and not because Donald Trump knew anything about Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking or Epstein using Mar-a-Lago to sex traffic girls like Virginia Giuffre. And one of the things that we've always been saying here at the MeidasTouch Network is we believed it was this real estate transaction. Also, Michael Wolff, Donald Trump's former biographer, who was also potentially going to be Epstein's biographer, when he spoke to Epstein, Michael Wolff told us on the MeidasTouch Network several months back, you may remember this, that Epstein was saying, no, it had nothing to do with the girls, nothing to do with sex trafficking. It was all about this real estate transaction where Epstein was pissed that Donald Trump sold this property to a Russian oligarch. Why would Epstein care about it? Because Epstein says in around 2003, 2004, that he introduced Donald Trump to this property that was in a foreclosure sale. And Epstein said that he was going to buy it from this other insurance guy in West Palm Beach who was going through a bankruptcy, and he wanted Donald Trump's advice about where the pool should be moved. So we brought Trump over, said, I'm about to buy this property in a foreclosure sale. You know a lot about this area and these neighborhoods. I like your, we're close friends. Where do you think the pool should go? How would you redesign it? And then Donald Trump ended up buying it in a foreclosure sale for about $7 million more than Epstein was going to pay for it. Epstein was shocked because he thought he had the foreclosure sale basically rigged in his favor. Turns out Donald Trump was the buyer. He's like, you ended up buying this? I was showing you that this was going to be something that I was going to get. I was just asking for your advice and you scooped this from under me. Then there were potential threats of litigation against each other. And one of the things that Epstein told Michael Wolff as well is that he wasn't sure also if Donald Trump was one of the people who was kind of cooperating ultimately with some of the criminal investigations, because he was worried that Epstein was going to sue him and knew about this deal where there may have been additional improprieties. And what additional improprieties might there have been? Well, in 2008, Donald Trump sells this property that he got from $41 million, and he sold it for approximately $125 million to a Russian oligarch by the name of Rybalov. And so this guy Rybalov gets it in 2008. Actually, it was about $95 million of what Rybalov paid for it. So Trump made basically double the money. There apparently wasn't a lot of renovations that took place. Rybalov then says he's going to help his daughters, move into the house. He ends up kind of destroying the home. It just turns it into rubble. And that's the end of that home. And so people were wondering, and Epstein had always wondered, I remember at that time, Donald Trump had gone through bankruptcies. How did Donald Trump even have the money to do a $41 million all cash deal on the foreclosure sale? Were there not? These were questions Epstein was asking. Any links originally to the Russians? Did they have any help in initially purchasing it such that they knew there was going to be a sale eventually? Was it part of some, other thing going on there? But that right there was the falling out that Epstein had always mentioned. So in the deposition of Bill Clinton, when he was asked, well, did you ever hear anything about Jeffrey Epstein from Donald Trump and about Donald Trump having any interactions with underage girls? Did you hear anything like that? And what Bill Clinton said is, well, what I basically, we can see the tape, but what I heard from Donald Trump is that it had nothing to their fallout had nothing to do with underage girls or anything like that. That's not what the issue was ever. What Donald Trump said was that there was some transaction that took place. There was some issue over financial stuff, and that's ultimately what caused the relationship to sever between Trump and Epstein. So because this deposition was originally done in private, because the MAGA Republicans did not want the public to see this live, what happens immediately after the deposition? James Comer, Nancy Mace, and all the MAGA Republicans, they run out and they hold a press conference and they misquote Bill Clinton's deposition testimony. They go, nah, Bill Clinton said that that he's unaware of anything that Donald Trump ever said about underage girls, knew nothing about it. When Bill Clinton said, what I was aware of was that Trump said that Epstein was like a fun guy or a good guy or like he enjoyed his times, but that they broke up over this real estate transaction. And the MAGA Republicans kind of misquoted I'm paraphrasing it there just to be clear, but they then kind of misquoted Clinton and said Clinton exonerates Donald Trump about Epstein. So I just want you to think about it. They then use Clinton as a character witness for Donald Trump and say Clinton exonerates Trump when Clinton did the opposite, actually. And Clinton said, here's what I know. I want to bring in Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel, Talking Feds Substack, and Talking Feds podcast. Harry, so that's what went down at that deposition. But I've always said, focus on that real estate transaction. And if you go through the Epstein files too, the ones that were produced by the estate, even before all of these records, there is a message from Epstein to Ghislaine, and they're talking about the feds and others engaging in an investigation. And they mention the West Palm Beach property. They mention the seller. They mention Trump. They mention that. So I was always like, that's the big thing. Focus there. And Clinton mentioned that in his deposition.
Yeah, Ben, you and Meidas really were well ahead of the game here. I mean, in some ways, the revelations that everyone's been waiting for, they've been revolting and lurid, but not exactly a surprise. It's what people were focused on, some of the whole sex trafficking, some surprises in just the sheer scope. But what's really come out that struck people as a surprise is the way that Epstein operated as, I heard someone put it well this way, a concierge to the high and mighty. Why did he want, besides his own whatever sexual perversions, why did he want to run this whole island and be a purveyor to all these people? Because of his own kind of business desire. So he's into all kinds of shit. So it stands to reason. We know that Trump, remember, he went to huge lengths. He woodshedded his allies. What the hell are you doing to me? To try to keep all this stuff from coming out until he was forced by a unanimous vote, -1 in the Congress, to let it all out. We know there are things that he feared and loathed, and it could well be all this other stuff, because think about who the hell Donald Trump was. I mean, as president, he every so often pretends to be honest or upstanding. He was the rogue of rogues, bankruptcies, lawsuits, lies after lies, pretending to be other people on the phone. What do you think his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein was at the time when they were, cavorting together and almost, and certainly had some knowledge of Epstein and his whole sex trafficking proclivities, of nothing else. So, in that sense, we've been, awakened to a whole broader, and this I think has really been a problem for the administration. They've tried this finesse that I don't think is working, and I don't think will work, of getting just a few documents out, then being late, having a whole data dump, no redactions, and saying, well, that's all, we can move on now. But so much is coming out about different people, including people in government in Europe. I mean, it's ironic, you could say. There, you could also say it's intentional, that the hit has been larger on government officials in Europe than on our government. We know, for example, a cabinet member of Trump has lied flatly about his relationship with Epstein, but so far Trump lets Howard Lutnick stick around. But the net effect of all this stuff, in addition to the repeated bumbling by DOJ, reproducing confidential information, pictures of victims, just re-victimizing them again, is to keep this alive. And there are so many tendrils that Epstein seemed to have out. And again, what kind of operator was Trump in 2003, 2004, et cetera, that it stands to reason that there is stuff here that goes beyond the sort of core sex ring that he was running, but that seemed to fuel his whole sort of business empire. Just one more thing they bring in Clinton. Many people thought this is stupid, but it's the virus that can't be eradicated from the blood of the conservative, political elite in this country that they hate Clinton so much. But at the end of the day, why did they bring him in? Supposedly, they were going to find their first production, 100 sheets that mentioned Clinton. They was supposed to be germane, and they were going to try to dirty him up with his own involvement, pictures, etc. You know that they didn't score any points there if what they've now retreated to is, oh, look, Clinton, like Ghislaine Maxwell, says that Trump did nothing wrong. Okay, if that's the point you want to use Bill Clinton for, it makes it deafeningly clear. Get Trump in. Get accountability for Trump. That's what Clinton is there doing. You can go to the source. And in fact, you can also go to the documents that have the source. In some ways, their message, and you're so right, they just run out and trip over each other to get in front of the cameras. Their message is Clinton says Trump did nothing. Well, okay. Now that intensifies the focus on Trump and is it real odds with the obvious DOJ message of, oh, nothing here to see, move along, we've done our job, while Ro Khanna and others say there's just a couple million more documents that you haven't produced. And NPR finds that many of them specifically have to do with Trump. The effect of doing this, I think, is to keep the embers or flames alive as to Trump himself.
Yeah, just to give people very specific details about that real estate transaction. 2004 was the purchase. The oceanfront estate was at 515 North County Road in Palm Beach. The specifics are Trump acquired it in a foreclosure sale for $41.35 million. This was part of a bankruptcy auction of a nursing home magnate named Abe Gossman, who filed for bankruptcy in 2003, leading to the court-ordered auction of the estate. Epstein got wind of this sale. He was the only bidder who can be in this range, and Gossman was Epstein's friend. So Epstein goes to Donald and says, hey, what do you think about this property? I'm about to buy it. I know you've got Mar-a-Lago. You think this is a great deal, right? So then it goes to this bankruptcy auction. Epstein loses. And he's like, how is it possible that I lost? This was rigged in my favor. There was nobody who was even else aware and knew or who could bid this amount. And then Donald Trump was the one who did it. And then so Epstein and Trump, though, Epstein was pissed about that. But then what happened in 2008 told Epstein everything. When Trump flipped that house for $95 million and more than doubled it in 4 years without major renovations, made Epstein say, you know what? Trump was probably in on it and Trump maybe denies this, but in Epstein's view, Trump and Rybalov were in on this to begin with. Epstein, I think, was telling people at that time, well, this was a way that Russian money was coming in. And this was, I think, stuff that Epstein was doing as well. And so then they start fighting over that deal because I think that was kind of Epstein's plan and plot. They get into it with each other. Epstein then gets arrested and gets ultimately kind of charged, then prosecuted 2007, 2008, gets that sweetheart deal. We know that after Epstein is arrested, that's when Donald Trump speaks with the West Palm Beach people who go to ask him, hey, did you know this? And then after, not before, people are like, oh, well, Donald Trump told the police. It was only after Epstein was arrested, Donald Trump tells the head of the Palm Beach police, yeah, we all knew what he was doing. He's a bad guy. We're glad that you got him, because he wanted to make sure Epstein goes away, because I think he thought that Epstein was suspicious about this overall transaction with the Russians. Epstein always harbored that and knew that, and that was the falling. So when Clinton dropped that dime, I just want people to pay attention to that, because to me, that's a big, big deal that I think exists with that transaction, and I've always been focusing on it. So
you really have. And let me just add, that was like, that's your closing argument, and you lay it out for the jury. I'll come in on the rebuttal when and I'll just say this: you have version A. Donald Trump was totally offended and morally outraged by his treatment of women, and therefore they had a falling out. Or you have version B, which my colleague, Mr. Meiselas, has just really laid out in great detail. Donald Trump, what do we know about him around this is the Donald Trump of Access Hollywood, grab him by the P. How friggin' likely is it that Donald Trump parted company from Jeffrey Epstein because he was morally offended by his conduct with women, versus that he did a dirty deal or had a dirty deal done, and that was the way it went down? Ladies and gentlemen, you don't need you only need to use your common sense and your knowledge of Donald Trump to know which of these stories is true.
Well, on that note, we close, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. But make sure you all subscribe to Harry Litman's YouTube channel. It's called the Talking Feds YouTube channel. He's got the Talking Feds Substack and the Talking Feds podcast. Hey, thanks so much, Harry.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, Ben.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.